Hey guys, Realtor Adele, your favorite realtor and investment property strategist. Welcome to the monthly housing market report where we review things like home prices and appreciation, mortgage interest rates, housing affordability, as well as current real estate trends. We also take a look at the overall economy and how things like the job market or rate of inflation may be impacting the housing market as a whole. In this month's report, we review all of those things and so much more, including the Fed's influence on mortgage interest rates. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you find it informative or beneficial to you in any way. This year, home prices have trended higher than expected. And even though we are seeing a significant amount of home price reductions, these are really price corrections more than anything else. When there is what we're beginning to see as a result of the price corrections is more of a glimpse of a balanced market where neither the buyer nor seller has the upper hand in the transaction. A balanced market would simply even out the playing field. Over the last year and a half, there have been many would-be home buyers that have been sitting on the sidelines since they've been priced out of the market due to inflated home prices. When it comes to home prices and how they're trending, the good old economics 101 comes into play, which is supply and demand. If home buyer demand outweighs the amount of homes for sale, then of course that would put upward pressure on home prices as a result of that inventory deficit. Keep in mind that, again, although we are seeing these price reductions, this doesn't mean that there will be a free fall in home prices. What we're actually experiencing is something I've never experienced in my lifetime as a real estate professional, which is housing demand outweighing the amount of housing supply. And this is why you're probably seeing all of these new home communities pop up everywhere, because we are still at a deficit when it comes to entry-level homes or first-time buyer homes. And new home builders have been answering that call for a lot of buyers. However, even with additional inventory on the market, we are still lower than we've been prior to the health crisis. At the end of the day, I think that the majority of people have gained a new appreciation for their home and their personal space and are inspired to create a home that truly serves them and, of course, their lifestyle. And this is why we will continue to see strong buyer demand. We've definitely seen a shift in priority when it comes to a desire to own a home. And it is pretty strong collectively, I've been noticing, as mortgage rates continue to adjust to a more manageable number. I'm sure that there will be an increase in home buyer activity, which means that there will more than likely be, again, that consistent upward pressure on home prices, especially if we continue to be at a deficit in regard to housing supply. Now, in regard to home builders, they are being very strategic in that, of course, when you go to a new home community, you notice that the builder have their preferred lenders, and these preferred lenders are able to provide creative financing, and they usually, or what do I want to say? We have been seeing that with new home communities, the preferred lenders for the builder, they are offering lower than usual mortgage interest rates and that has been a welcome strategy for those buyers that are currently in the market to purchase a home. Here are 2024 home price expectation in regard to the rate of appreciation from a few industry experts, including Fannie Mae Home Price Expectation Survey, the Mortgage Bankers Association, Goldman Sachs, the National Association of Realtors, Zillow, and Freddie Mac. Now, the chart to your left is the rate of appreciation that was expected earlier in the year, and then the chart to your right is the rate of appreciation that's expected for quarter four. So earlier in the year, the home price appreciation expectation was at an average of 2.8%, and most recently, that number has risen to 3.1%. In regard to housing inventory, the amount of housing that's available for sale plays a huge role in home prices. Inventory supply is what sets the tone in regard to whether it's a buyer's or seller's market, and the type of market, of course, is reflected in the home prices. If inventory levels outweigh the amount of active home buyers, then it's a buyer's market. If the amount of homes for sale are insufficient for the amount of active buyers in the market, then of course the reverse happens and it's a seller's market. To determine the type of housing market, you must compare both options. Wherever there is a deficit, that's the group that has the upper hand in the transaction or during a given period. To date, there has been an increase of 36.6% of housing inventory in comparison to last year. Having been a seller's market for the past few years, an increase of homes for sale is a welcome adjustment for home buyers. And this increase of inventory, again, doesn't necessarily mean an automatic change from a seller's to a buyer's market. It simply means that there are more options for those who are actively looking to purchase a home. Today's home buyer not only have more options in regard to physical housing, they can also exercise negotiation power in the transaction with things such as the price, certain seller concessions, and other transaction terms. Right now, inventory levels are about 29% of what's considered normal, and as a result, home prices remain competitive. Now that we've touched on home prices and housing inventory, let's get into the meat of the transaction, which is mortgage interest rates. Now, rates have been on a downward trend for the past few weeks. They ticked back up slightly the middle of August, and now they're on a downward trend again and currently at 6.35% for a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. As we head into the fourth quarter or toward elections, it is a presidential election year, and usually it's not unexpected for rates to decrease the closer we get to the election date. So another rate decrease is expected. Now, of course, the Federal Reserves meet again in September, and we'll have to see what happens with the federal funds rate, since mortgage interest rates tend to follow whichever way the federal funds rate is trending. Some industry experts believe that we are seeing a downward trend in mortgage interest rates due to a weakened economy. There have been recent news about a weakened job growth and an increased unemployment. I'm sharing this chart with you because the unemployment rate is something to keep an eye on, as it does affect what happens with mortgage interest rates, and it affects the federal funds rate. And whatever the federal funds rate is or how it trends, mortgage rates will naturally follow. And usually with a weakened economy, rates will decline in order to stimulate the economy. What else do I want to say about this chart? Oh, my unpopular opinion. So, since the health crisis, there have been a great number of people who have left traditional jobs, whether by force or voluntarily, and they are now earning their own income, whether that is by means of starting a traditional business or doing freelance work. And I'm not sure that those groups of people are included or considered in the unemployment rate or the job growth chart or number dynamic. I'm not sure those groups of people are considered. I'm not entirely sure how that works, if they do count or consider that group that still earns income, however, just not in a traditional setting. So while it's important to keep an eye or be aware on job growth and unemployment rate, me personally, my unpopular opinion probably, I'm not sure how accurate this is. I think a more accurate indicator is maybe consumer spending, in order to determine how the economy is faring or trending. Once consumer spending really slows, me personally, I feel it's like, okay, something is happening here. There's a obvious slowdown, because whether someone earns income the traditional way or freelance, however they make their money, as long as they're making money, they're going to spend. Therefore, I feel that consumer spending is a more accurate indicator of how the economy is faring overall. As previously mentioned, the Federal Reserve does not set mortgage interest rates. However, they do influence them. For example, if the Fed funds rate decreases, then mortgage interest rates do the same. The Feds look at inflation, unemployment, and the jobs report to determine what the funds rate should be. Consumer spending is also considered. The Feds have been the topic of discussion once the volatility of mortgage rates began a couple of years ago. Their job really is to bring an end to the madness, or to, at the very least, make things better in the world of mortgage interest rates. As a result, the Fed's goal has been to slow inflation. This is done by raising the Fed funds rate, which in turn influences mortgage interest rates, thus slowing down the economy and inflation. This graph breaks down the rate of inflation for the last 4 years and measures where we were where we currently are, and ideally where the feds would like the funds rate to land. 5.3% is the highest the funds rate have been. That was a couple of years ago. In 2022 and part of 23, the rate fluctuated and pretty much stayed in the vicinity of that number. In quarter four of 23 and now in 2024, we have seen the Fed funds rate trend down a bit. When the Feds meet in September, there are expectations of another rate cut. Let's take a look at housing affordability. I think that when most people think about affordability, they naturally default to the cost of something. Like, what is the price, right? Myself included, I used to have that mindset as well when I consider is something affordable or not. So I think that the majority of people think that way as well when they are determining if something is affordable. We naturally think, well, what is the price of it? In the case of buying a home, what makes a home affordable? Or a better question is, what determines affordability, right, when buying a home? We just went over mortgage interest rates. We just went over home prices, the unemployment rate. Clearly, these are all strong factors when determining if a home is affordable, and clearly when buying a home. So most people would need funding, and therefore would need at least 2 years on a job to be considered for a mortgage, or 2 years of proven income if you're self-employed. I wanted to share some math with you, hence the chart, in order to break down housing affordability. So we'll need a price, like a price point and a mortgage interest rate. This chart is I'm demonstrating the home price, or let's say a loan amount of $500,000. Just so you know, the average home price in Metro Atlanta for a single family home is in excess of this. I think it's right now is $572,000. So I guess it's fair to say a loan amount of $500,000. And let's go back to April when the interest rate was at 7.52%. And now, or at the time this chart was created, the rate was at 6.40%. Right now, it's not too far from that. But we'll use the 6.4 just to keep it a nice round number. So back in April, rate of 7.52%. Right now, rate of 6.40%. Loan amount $500,000 in each instant. You can see the monthly payment back in April was $3,502.92. And then the monthly payment for right now, $3,127.53. And again, that is at the lower mortgage interest rate. That's a difference in monthly payment of $375.39. And I am saying all that to say that in regard to housing affordability, you still have the same loan amount. The difference is the interest rate. The lower the interest rate, then naturally, yes, the lower the monthly payment. I just wanted to share this and kind of pen to paper, if you will, break down or attempt to break down just a little peek at housing affordability. So it's not really the price in this example that determines affordability. It is the mortgage interest rate, which makes sense because in your monthly mortgage payment, the highest part of that payment is the interest. Yes and yes. So just a little bit of food for thought. So when you think of housing affordability, I think that it will be helpful or beneficial to break it down in this manner instead of just using the price to determine if a house is affordable or not. Let's take a look at housing trends in Metro Atlanta. We will be focusing on pending sales, closed sales, the days on market, the average sales price, the percentage of list price received, and the month supply of inventory. To the left, to the middle left of the chart, those numbers are for single family detached, and to the right of that, the numbers are for attached homes. Starting with pending sales, we were at 3338. The amount that closed was 3931. So there's a great difference in that number. So 3338 was actually under contract or pending, and then we have 3931. That's over 600. That's over 600 additional that actually closed, which is pretty good news. Of course, that tells us that there were homes that were under contract in the previous month and then closed in that current month. Days on market, 29. Average sales price for single family detached, $572,351. That's actually down from last month. And the percentage of list price received is just under 99%. And so that tells us that sellers are receiving close to their asking price, but more importantly, we are seeing that that sellers are more open to being negotiable in regard to their price or providing the concessions to home buyers. Month supply of inventory is 3.4. On to attached homes, pending sales were 929. The amount that actually closed was 1,033. So again, we had a much higher amount of homes that closed than those that were under contract. Average days on market 32. Average sales price $403,050. Percent of list price received 98.4%. Days on market 4.1. So not days on market, that's the month supply of inventory. Pardon me. However, we are seeing that slow climb or slow increase for inventory when it comes to condos and townhomes. It's not unusual to have a higher amount of attached homes for sale, since the majority of people prefer a single family detached home. So those are the numbers. And we can see too, one more thing I want to point out, if we looked at year to date. So on each of those columns, if you look to the left of each of those columns, that number represents what it was a year prior to. So for a single family detached in regard to month supply of inventory, a year ago there was 2.1 and the current is at 3.4. And then for attached, a year ago, the month supply of inventory was 2.2 months, whereas now that has just about doubled. Again, when I mentioned inventory previously, we can see that there has been increased inventory that is on the market. However, we are still at a deficit. To recap, home prices have trended higher than expected in most markets. Home price reductions are really price corrections. Housing inventory is up 36%, however, we are still at a deficit. Due to the supply-demand imbalance, home prices will remain competitive. The average home price appreciation is expected to be around 3% in quarter 4. We are still experiencing a seller's market, however, it's feeling more like a balanced market since sellers are open to offering more concessions to home buyers in comparison to a year ago. Most mortgage rates, or should I say mortgage rates, have been on a downward trend in recent weeks and are expected to continue as we get closer to the presidential election. The average sales price for a single-family home in Metro Atlanta is $572,351 and $403,050 for attached homes. Average days on market is 30. Month supply of inventory is 3.4 for single-family detached and 4.1 for attached homes. We are still in a seller's market. And in regard to home prices and how they are affected during a presidential year, a presidential election year has no impact in home prices. And traditionally, whichever way home prices were trending prior to a presidential election is how the home prices continue to trend leading up to a presidential election and beyond. And on a note with that, we do see a slowdown in sales during a presidential election year as it gets closer to that exact date. And so there is a slowdown in buyer activity, but in regard to home prices being affected, traditionally that is not the case. Thank you so much for watching. As always, it's my goal to bring you accurate information from trusted sources so that you can make the best decision for yourself and your family.